So we've already talked about the seemingly slow takeover of the crazy parts of the right, of the populist, of the sort of nativist, of the even like theocratic almost takeovers of the right, especially with people like Nick Fuentes. And today we'll cover how do fans of Nick Fuentes look at a situation? How do they evaluate a situation? We'll be talking about this guy. He has a YouTube channel, I think like 60, 70,000 subscribers. His name is, I had it somewhere in Iron Descent. So, it's the strong way of putting it. And we'll cover that, which we'll play a few clips. What I find interesting is generally just the what even gets somebody to do something video because he like agrees with Nick Fuentes, so he does like a video covering Nick Fuentes where like agrees with him, which I'm not sure if we've ever done of like watching somebody just to like praise them. So I found that is interesting. But we have a super chat from Jonathan. Thank you so much. Welcome to the Daily Objective. Joining me today is James Valiant. And I mean, James, we should go to the clips, but any brief thoughts before we go in?
Well, Nick Fuentes has established himself as just, a tribalist bigot of the lowest kind. And, honestly, this guy has gone so far off the edge that he's denouncing the Trump administration and Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson. So he's reached a point where I think he's making himself rather irrelevant to the American political scene. But what a lunatic he is. What a frothing at the mouth anti-Semite he is. I mean, what else can you say? We'll see plenty of that. With any, you could just dip in randomly at these clips and get the sense of what an the degree of his vicious anti-Semitism. Yeah.
So we also have a super chat from Bonnie. Thank you so much. So let's take a look at the clips. I think I pulled out four of them, with all of them being about a minute. We'll also hear a little bit from Nick Fuentes, but mainly from this Iron Descent guy.
But if you're not loyal to America, yet you have power over America, that's a problem. If we were infiltrated by any other country, you would feel the same way. If a Chinese billionaire was selling us out to Beijing, we would feel the same way.
Yeah, and if a Chinese person was in our government and he was sending U.S. National Defense Intelligence, classified intelligence to the Chinese government, to the CCP, he may be executed, right? Jonathan Pollard he was able to flee. Yeah, released him from prison. Went to Israel. Look at Douglas Feith, Richard Pearl, Lawrence Franklin, right? Any other country who's committed a genocide, the UN Commission of Inquiry a couple months ago confirmed that. The UN Human Rights Council confirmed it.
So we'll cover the later parts in a bit, but I want to just bring up. So they were talking about Jonathan Pollard, and specifically the reason for was Mike Huckabee. Apparently, Mike Huckabee had a secret meeting with Jonathan Pollard that Mike Huckabee didn't have in like his official sort of that this is what was going to happen. Trump administration also didn't. Mike Huckabee is the ambassador to Israel from the U.S. Trump administration didn't know about it, and this is what they are calling out. Now, specifically why Jonathan Pollard is that he was sentenced in 1987 for giving American state secrets to Israel. Now, I don't necessarily understand why they are bringing up. I think it's understandable to some extent. Yeah, Jonathan Pollard did that and served his sentence, served probation. This meeting has happened after it. I think it can still be problematic if you have somebody who, I mean, formerly sold U.S. Or gave U.S. state secrets, and now you have ambassador like meeting with them secretly. It's definitely a problem. But he said being allowed to flee into Israel, and this is what I found interesting. Like, what do we mean here? I mean, he did that. He served like 30 years, I believe. He served
Well,
like 30 years for.
that was the sentence. But normally people don't serve the full sentence.
Well, yeah, but still, like gotten a sentence, served it,
Yeah,
and
it was sentenced and convicted.
and also went through his probation. Like this was even done after his probation, after which he moved to Jerusalem. So my question would be, and I think this goes similarly to when people talk about like US's liberty, right? And when people say Israel should pay the price. Well, Israel tried to, or gave something to the families, apologized immediately for it. I mean, what does it really mean to endlessly harp on something? And this is like similar here, right? Like it's not if James, you're an American, so you should probably be worried about it if it didn't happen. But the fact is that he did like serve his sentence, so I'm not exactly sure what is being demanded. Like he said, execution, right? Does America like execute people still?
And we don't execute them for this. No, that's for sure. Unless he's guilty of actual treason, which is defined in the Constitution as taking up arms against the United States or giving material aid and comfort to those who do. So it's not treason, and it wasn't murder. So no, even in America, you don't get executed in any jurisdiction for that. But I would also make the huge conceptual difference between our allies with whom we voluntarily share intelligence all the time. The United Kingdom and the United States are in an agreement to share intelligence. Now, obviously, you can commit a crime of sharing intelligence that hasn't been approved to be released to the other side, of course. But it's a whole lot different between, say, selling information to the Chinese, which is the comparison they're making here, in any case. But the idea that, well, you said we were going to get into the other stuff later, but it just seems to me there's a huge conceptual difference. We're on Israel's side, and that's what he really doesn't like. We do share, legally, we share intelligence with Israel all the time.
And
I mean,
Israel with America.
well, that's exactly it. It's a reciprocal, just like with the United Kingdom. We're in constant, they're presumably our best allies, and so we're in a constant state of exchanging our, because Britain and Israel have excellent intelligence services, some of the best in history, and sharing information with them makes perfect sense when they're your close ally, right? So I think what he has a problem with is not this illegal thing that happened 30 years ago, right? What he's really concerned about is cooperating at all with Israel, like giving them any aid, any military aid, even when they're confronting a war. But he's really taking sides on the side of the Islamic states against Israel. That's the main thrust of it. For example, if it was one of these countries, Middle Eastern theocracies, dictatorships, Iran, that the person was convicted of, I would have a very, very different attitude. I just have to tell you right off the top. He was sentenced. It's not as though he got away with it. But after all, Israel is one of our closest allies. They have one of the best intelligence services in the world. We should be exchanging intelligence. The great United States should be sharing intelligence with its closest allies, don't you think? It's crazy.
Yeah, and I would say, like, still, if somebody does something illegal, they should serve the sentence. I like I didn't know much about Jonathan Pollard before. I think because this original story is from, I think, November. So I think I've seen something about it around that time. But apparently, after the meeting, he also commented he on Trump, saying he was a madman who has literally sold us down the drain for Saudi gold. And this was said after the decision with the F-35s fighter jets being sent to Riyadh, which, funnily enough, I would actually agree with. Yeah, that any dealing
very
with.
much agree with his political. I wouldn't break the law.
Yeah.
Even if we think the law is dumb, even if we think our policy is dumb, don't break the law. On the other hand, his policy position is correct. Why are we selling sophisticated military aircraft to Saudi Arabia? That is very problematic in my view. So politically, in the big political picture, I agree with him. What the hell are we doing selling, military aircraft to Saudi Arabia? Some of the best military, America makes the best military airplanes in the world. Why does Saudi Arabia get them? That I have to agree with you there.
Yeah, and He mentioned more people. He mentioned also Lawrence Franklin, which I looked up. Apparently, he also did something. I can't remember what exactly he did. But he also like had a sentence, was convicted. His sentence was reduced, but it was said that it was reduced for cooperating with the American like the Department of Justice. So that's why his sentence was reduced. He also mentioned Richard Pearl, who I'm not sure why exactly he's even mentioning. I don't think he fits in that. Like he wasn't convicted of anything. He did advocate for the Iraq war, and he did say Iraq had the weapons of mass destruction. But I cannot really see the reason.
And that was wrong, and that should never have been our cause for going to war with Iraq.
Oh,
I understand, but I don't know. When it comes to Richard Pearl, I don't think he committed a crime. He just took a policy position that he disagrees with, and he may have even said something that was factual that turns out, in the light of history, to be factually wrong.
Yeah, so again, when it comes to like a lot of the stuff, and this is what is alluring oftentimes, right? Like if you take it, if you look at it probably on what they say, right? Uh, People should be first and foremost like loyal to America, or people shouldn't have like foreign, whatever, like they shouldn't prefer some other states instead of Israel, instead of America. Well, that's a Freudian slip.
But
But
if you do
yeah,
have
yeah.
access
Well,
to
I just
American
want to finish
intelligence, your
quickly.
loyalty
Yeah,
should be America. Yeah.
yeah, but then like, what does it even mean to have like a loyalty to America, right? Is it to some national sort of thing of America, or is it to the founding principles of the Republic? Because Nick Fuentes thinks America should be a theocracy. So is he loyal to America, or is he loyal to like America with a K or something, like some weird
Yeah.
understanding of America?
Well, that is true. Americanism is, the founding ideas that you'll find in our Declaration of Independence and our Bill of Rights, let me suggest. Let me suggest that George Washington, James Madison, and Thomas Jefferson articulated what Americanism is. It's not this blood and soil nativism that is rising in an ugly way on the right. Um, but Nick Fuentes is making himself rather irrelevant in criticizing Trump and Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson. I mean, he's reached a point where I have mixed feelings about the show, to be honest, because giving him more attention now that he's gassed himself off the deep end of insanity, even further out of the realm of reality than Tucker Carlson, then look, this guy's is making himself utterly irrelevant, even on the right, which is, I think, a good thing. I mean, I would want that to have same fate to happen to Tucker and Candace, for example. They have dropped off the deep end of all sanity. And I saw Tucker Carlson at the White House just a couple days ago with something. What the hell is Trump doing? Even having Tucker Carlson at the White House, when he's obviously a lunatic who prefers the Muslim world, just as Nick Fuentes prefers. And see, that reveals the anti-Americanism, the America with a K, as you put it, of Nick Fuentes. He cannot see that Israel is more closely aligned in its values than any of these other Middle Eastern countries. If Israel is at war with these other Middle Eastern countries, well, then we're somehow being Zionist controlled in our country, because he shares, you're absolutely right, he's a medievalist and a mystic and a tribalist, so he shares a value orientation much closer to Iran than to Israel. And if you're going to judge things by American values, clearly Israel is much closer to Americanism and civilization than the savage regime in Iran. So in preferring the Muslim world, which in terms of his own values, he makes clear, what he's doing is announcing an anti-American attitude of the most savage kind. America was the nation of the Enlightenment. America is the nation that it was a radical secularization in the history of government. America represented a radical move towards secular government. No establishment of religion is the first thing in our Bill of Rights. Nick Fuentes prefers the theocratic elements in the Middle East, like Iran and Saudi Arabia, than to anything American-like. And if he can't see that Israel is far more in line with American values than those theocratic regimes, then he knows nothing about what America is. He's not loyal to America or Americanism. He's just hostile to Jews. He's just a bigot.
Yeah, and so Brazil sent me a message that Pollard spent more time in jail than average spy. They usually get released as some sort of a gesture after a while. And there's no actual point here, right? It's just random names from random times, even, right? But
Right.
just quickly to finish, something else he said that, there is a genocide in Gaza, or that Israel is committing a genocide because UN Commission of Inquiry has said. Now, I reject any international law. I don't know how America firsters can like stand behind
I know.
international law,
If you're
stand
if you're
behind the UN.
citing if you're citing these international groups, you've really announced your anti-Americanism, right? I mean, these international groups are systematically anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, and anti-American. China and Russia are on the Security Council, and if you think that the United Nations or any of these international bodies represent something more, and they accept the outcome of it, mind you, all these people who would say America first, presumably America first means we don't defer to world organizations either. And he's more concerned about any kind of alliance or help of Israel and so he'll use the absolutely most anti-American, America last would be your attitude if you're citing the UN or
Yeah,
any of these other international groups.
because there again, like I don't think any American president had arrest warrant on him, and I'm not sure if technically International Court of Justice would even give one because America doesn't participate actually. But
Right.
well, specifically, shouldn't that be something he should criticize? Because Israel is part of the International Criminal Court, which is or is the signatory to the Rome Statute, which is why the International Court of Justice and International Criminal Court can go after them. America is not. So would he advocate for it? If George Bush had an arrest warrant on him, would he support arresting of George Bush? And the other ones, right? Does he support arresting of Putin? Would he have
Right.
supported the arresting of Milosevic in Serbia?
Oh no! You see, Putin is now a Russian Orthodox nationalist. Maybe, like Tucker Carlson says, maybe Russia is more in line with your values than America. Obviously, Iran and Qatar and Saudi Arabia are more in line with their values. But just on the face of it, if you prefer UN determinations of these matters to, American determination of these matters, you're not America first. It's really total obvious contradiction to say that, well, I'm deferring to the opinion of the international bodies on whether this is genocide, which is just factually wrong. I mean, it's bizarre. It's the worst genocide in human history. But in any case, there's no question in my mind that international bodies are the opposite of anything that could meaningfully be called America first.
He also said Human Rights Council has confirmed this, which again, I don't consider international law as law. It's a
But everything that happens, everything that the Gazans did to Israel, everything that Iran is doing to its own people, that's no concern to them. So
yeah, let's actually take
maybe thousands of people may be dying in Iran right now, but that's no. Hey, wait a minute. That's not. Why should we care about that? What we care about is Israel defending itself. That is just sick.
Yeah, and let's take a look at the second clip because he brings up even more random things.
They have a modern apartheid regime. Palestinians have to pay higher taxes. They work for lower wages. They have no ability to unionize. They're not given labor protections. They have curfews on their shelters, segregated roads in the West Bank, segregated neighborhoods. They can't own land in Israeli settlements. There's a separation wall. Their settlements are defended by barbed wire and electric fences. This is a modern apartheid regime that's committed a genocide. That's a rogue pariah state at war with 8 different countries: Iraq, Iran, Lebanon, Syria, Qatar, Yemen, Gaza, West Bank. 8. What's the 9th front? American media. They're at war with us. And that's coming from Bibi's mouth, the prime minister. So a country who has declared war on our media has a stockpile of nuclear weapons, a clandestine nuclear program that has never was never demanded to allow inspectors within their country to inspect it. No signatory of the NPT has committed a genocide and presides over a modern apartheid state.
So again, just sort of like says stuff and expects you to like take it for what it is, right? Like this is, he says Palestinians, have higher taxes, lower wages, no ability to unionize, labor protections, curfews, segregated roles. They cannot own land in settlements. There's a separation wall, and settlements are defended by barbed wire. I might have missed one or the
After
other.
having been subject to persistent violence over many decades from Palestinians, Israel has taken rational security steps to protect itself. But I have to return to, there he is defending international law again. For example, the Non-Proliferation Treaty, on and on and on. He prefers international law to American policy. Now, I want someone to explain to me on the right, who believes in this Trumpian version of American first, how that is America first. Putting international law before American policy, the policy created by our elected leaders, is, well, that should really take a back seat to international law, is what he's specifically arguing. And he's, of course, the historical nonsense that he's uttering is just worse than ignorant. It is bigoted, evasive, twisted, lying blindness.
Yeah, and also it's a complete, I mean, destruction of the concept of apartheid. The fact is that Palestinians that live under Palestinian Authority are not Israeli citizens, are
But
not part of
Jews
the
have all
state of
kinds
Israel.
of freedom in the Muslim world around there, right? That's
No,
not
but no, that doesn't even fit, because Arabs in Israel proper that are Israeli citizens enjoy full rights of being
right.
citizens, and they do
Exactly.
not
They have
have.
freedom of speech. They can own property. They vote. Compare it to all the Muslim states around them. Do Jews get the same kind of treatment in those countries? And they're not the apartheid ones? Talk about upside down, backwards, inside out. This
Because
guy,
again, going back into South Africa, Black Africans weren't living in a separate state. They lived under the same laws, under the same or under the same legal structure rather than same laws. They were living under different laws because they were considered a different kind of person. They weren't considered the full first-class citizens. They weren't considered the full citizens of the regime, and therefore they had separate things. Similarly, or somewhat similarly to the Jim Crow laws in the South, the black people were considered as something, as a separate category. They didn't live in a separate state. When it comes to the Area A of the under Palestinian Authority, that's a separate organization. That's not part of Israel. Because if we go back to before the Oslo, when all of this was Israel, Arabs and Palestinians were treated the same as Israelis. Not all Palestinians were citizens, so there was a little bit of a difference there, but they were free to move everywhere. Actually, Palestinians had a lot of freedom of movement because they could go to Tel Aviv and Adan. I think it's Adan. They could have gone to Jordan. There was like a relatively free freedom of movement moving around there. But now it's a separate security thing. Now you might have a problem with the way this is being set up for some reason, but saying that this is apartheid is simply wrong.
simply wrong. Well, you've destroyed.
It's not
the
wrong.
concept of
I know what he's trying to do. The goal isn't, and that's why there is like a confusion. Like when you say higher taxes, Israel doesn't put taxes on Palestinians in West Bank. They are not under Israeli jurisdiction. Now, Israel collects some of the taxes on the behalf of the Palestinian Authority, but it doesn't pay. So if there are higher taxes, this is on Palestinian Authority for them to like have higher taxes. And even then, I don't think they even do. When it comes to lower wages, well, I mean, if they live in Israel, I mean, what does it even mean to lower wages? Like Iran has lower wages than America. Is that America's fault? Like it's like a separate thing. It's somebody else. It's them. They are like dealing with that.
Yeah. But look, South Carolina and Mississippi under Jim Crow were more apartheid states, as you point out, than Israel is today against Arabs. Certainly, clearly, by law. And if you can't make that distinction between what is truly, a tribalist state discriminating against a minority through law systematically in the case of Jim Crow South, or South Africa, and or say the Jewish ghettos of Europe, then you've lost any kind of factual basis for your opinion. There have been many cases in history where races or religions have been separated out and discriminated against systematically And to compare the condition of Muslims or Arabs in Israel today to that is obscene and historically ignorant.
Yeah, and then it brings up the Israel is at war with 8 different countries, which again, I don't understand how, even if it was true, how that is like a fault of Israel. It's
Israel.
like, oh yeah, when Israel was founded, it was at war with, I don't know how
No,
many it was,
no,
but like,
Daniel. No, Daniel. He prefers those theocratic Muslim states to Israel across the board on values. Israel, despite its respect for rights like freedom of speech and property rights and having a functioning representative democracy, that is less important to him than the religious conservative values in the Muslim world. He is stating his medievalism, his preference for religious theocracy over a civilized, semi-rights respecting country. And so presumably he's see, that's what really makes him anti-American. So anything that more resembles America, like Israel, I mean, for him, what is Americanism? Anything that more resembles America's true values, like Israel, is inferior in his mind. Because I think Tucker Carlson, he's not as crazy as that, but he is crazy. He prefers the values in Qatar. After all, there's no gay pride parades in Qatar. Isn't that preferable, Daniel? Isn't it preferable to live under a Muslim monarch because there are no gay pride parades, rather than having a respect for women's rights or freedom of speech or, basic human liberties? It's detached from reality, twists the meaning of all words like genocide and apartheid. He is just one of these anti-Semitic bigots who wishes Israel doesn't exist and hates Jews in general. It's the
yeah,
only way you can interpret it.
and again, I could go with like every single of these countries, and in all of them, it either is not war, or it's not really war, or it's
Well, yeah,
justified, or you could like rationally explain every single one of them,
I don't see
even
Israel
even
bombing.
from
Yeah,
Israel, even from American point of view, not simply from the state of Israel point of view.
absolutely. I don't. Israel did bomb Iran recently. Now that is a kinetic war, and they're under constant threat of getting yet another missile barrage from Iran. Now I think they've been taken down in their capacities, and I think they're facing a lot of domestic problems, obviously, right now. And that is really the concern. If his
Uh,
focus isn't right now on the suffering of the Iranian people trying to overthrow their government, but rather on Israel's alleged sins, then this man has no respect for rights, liberty. His values are twisted and as anti-American as I can imagine, much less America first.
yeah, I think somebody has a chat, has a question in the chat, and I think it's for you, James. So listen carefully. Let me ask you all, honestly, what comes first, Christ or the USA?
The USA, without a doubt. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, the second and third presidents of the United States, the two men who led the charge for the Declaration of Independence, both stated officially that America is not a Christian nation. Thomas Jefferson was not a Christian, and not in the religious sense at all. So if I had to choose between Christianity and America, I would choose America. You see, in that sense, I'm America first. America represented a radical secularization. European governments all had some kind of Christian basis for their legitimacy, had some official church in most cases. America
I
was a
mean,
radical,
the kings divine the right to rule from
the
God.
divine right of kings, which comes from Romans 13, one of Paul's, letters. No, 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 no. If you're going to prefer Christian doctrine over the U.S. Constitution or Declaration of Independence, then I'm afraid I have to oppose you as anti-American. There are Christian fanatics out there. Christians were torturing other Christians and burning them at the stake for most of its history until the Enlightenment, just for a little sectarian difference. You're a different Christian than I am. If that's what you mean by putting Christianity first, then you are anti-American. Christianity takes all religions and says, no, they can have no establishment in America. All religions must be treated equally in America. See, that's a radical idea. It's not Christianity first, and Christians get some preference. In fact, any preference for Christians under law is unconstitutional in America, and that's one of the basic things of Americanism, my friend.
Somebody said Paul is the first Mossad agent, which is an
Paul was the
interesting.
first Messiah. No, Paul more like if I had to choose who he was working for, I would say the Romans, not the Jews. He said obey the Roman government, right? No. The New Testament is politically oriented against the Jewish rebels of the first 2 centuries, not for them.
Let's take a look at the next clip.
That type of country would merit a trade embargo, an arms embargo, sanctions, absolutely no foreign aid. But with Israel, because of the Zionist lobby, affluent Jewish donors, the Israel lobby, Zionist oligarchs, it doesn't matter. And billionaires are disproportionately Jewish. Jewish people are overrepresented amongst billionaires, amongst the Fortune 500 companies, amongst advanced education degrees, doctoral degrees, PhDs, overrepresented in the academia and the intelligentsia, in STEM field vocations. So they use it to advance the interests of Israel. They see U.S. foreign policy through that lens.
Most of the support, may I just say,
Yeah.
most of the support for Israel in America comes from Christians and non-affiliated, religiously non-affiliated. Jews represent a tiny portion of the population, and if they are
I think it's
overrepresented
like
in all
one
those
of the
areas,
percent, yeah.
then all he is articulating here is dripping envy, hatred of the good for being the good. They get more PhDs, they're wealthier, because after all, wealth has nothing to do with working hard or creative intelligence. No. So all he is confessing his dripping envy for the wonderful culture that creates in Jews this focus on education, reason, capitalism, success. No. And by the way, most of the support for Israel in America comes from non-Jews. He's just, and by the way, of course, it's just recycling the old anti-Semitic tropes about how Israel controls the world, controls politics, Hollywood, Wall Street. No, they don't. And, they don't, not some diabolical mind control. It's just another ugly anti-Semitic trope.
Yeah, and again, I always say, like, if you believe in this, how can you even be pro-American? If I was part of a country that was taken over by 1% of its population, maybe we should pack it up. Maybe we are not, capable enough to like rule over ourselves or to govern ourselves if like a percentage of people is able to completely take over. No, the fact is that America and Americans for a long time just viewed Israel as a natural ally, pretty much since
They are. They're the
yeah.
closest. We share values and interests with Israel in a way we do not with any other country in the area. And I will include our NATO ally, Turkey, in that. No, Israel is much more closely aligned with true Americanism and American interests, actually, too. I mean, Israel is representing what the American interest in the area and American values in the area in a much better way than any of those other countries are. I mean, they're not perfect, but America's not perfect. The United Kingdom is not perfect. I mean, what can you say, this guy? Again, in preferring, it's as if America doesn't have representation, as if its policy is being set by unelected officials. No, it is not. We have 435 members of Congress who are elected, the majority of them every 2 years in elections. We have a president who's elected by the states. They represent, and if you want to change that, what you do is you go to the ballot box and convince Americans that that's the case. It's not as though a pro-Israel policy has been foisted on the American people against their will. Crazy.
Because again, that was chosen, right? The fact
Right.
was that America wasn't even supporting Israel really at the start. Like, where did the IDF or what then became IDF get their weapons from? It wasn't from America during the War of Independence.
No.
They were imported from, or not smuggled through Czechoslovakia.
Other
Again, like,
places, not
yeah,
not
like
primarily
even
America back then.
Like I think the sort of the alliance between America and Israel didn't happen until the sort of the Six-Day War, or until, or I think like between Suez Crisis and the Six-Day War is sort of where the actual sort of former alliance started forming. So it
Well, when
wasn't
Israel
after.
was attacked, we had to step up our support for poor little Israel, surrounded by a sea of dictatorships, was being invaded. Now, Israel preemptively took care of it rather efficiently, but it was a war that compelled America to take sides and start giving military aid to Israel. Do you think there was something inappropriate with that? If one of our allies gets attacked and invaded, it is time to step up our support and protect them from being destroyed by their enemies. I don't get it.
Yeah, and again, just to return a bit back, somebody I think said this overrepresentation argument sounds like DEI. I mean, it absolutely is, right? Like when people talk about how Americans are losing their jobs to immigrants, or in this case, Jews are overrepresented. What is this else than DEI argument? So we need to like come up with Americans suck so bad that like they cannot get educated, they cannot work properly, that we need to come up with some grudges or something to like put them up
It's
instead
envy
of.
dripping collectivism. It's envy dripping collectivism. You know something? Asians too, Chinese, Japanese, and Vietnamese immigrants to America are also overrepresented in higher education degrees, average income, things like that.
Yeah, and here I think people should ask themselves the question like, what then happened to Americans? Because I don't want to like disparage Americans, right? The fact is, free Americans went to colonize the West pretty much, went all alone with just things they had on their back to go and claim land in the west of America because of the opportunity. Like what is the difference between between immigrants who came to America when it was developing itself, and between Americans who decided to go into the West, right, to California, to the Western states?
My
It was the same
ancestors
kind of thing.
pioneered the American West, and the thing is that what did Native Americans have a right to have an anti-immigration policy, but today America should have an open border policy? It's crazy. Now I am pro-immigration, and so therefore I don't think there's any argument that Native Americans had to say, well, you white folks, because you're white and from another country, can't come in and develop this area, which was largely undeveloped. I know maybe I'm biased because I descend from the pioneers of the American West, but that's, look at what we did. Would you rather live in California today or California 250 years ago? They were literally living in the Stone Age.
Yeah, and again, when it comes to like, I always like the idea of a ghost town in America, because what is a ghost town, right? It's there was a great resource at some point there where a lot of Americans moved, and once it went out, everybody moved out because okay,
Right.
we no longer have a job here, we're gonna move somewhere else. But now what these people are demanding is, I mean, there is a term for it, right? The divine right of stagnation. The fact is, I was born in this town and I'm gonna die in this town. And I don't mean to disparage Southern Americans, because, yeah, I mean, this is the kind of thing they are demanding, right? The fact that you shouldn't work for anything, you shouldn't do anything with your life. Don't worry, just stay here. And this is even the sort of message Trump was giving. Like, don't move
Yeah.
out of your town. Just we'll fix it for you. Government will fix this for you. You don't have to do anything with your life. Simply wait for the government. Will come and will rescue your job or your education.
And that's what they
Will.
want the government for, this new right. This new right is not capitalist. This new right says we should be giving welfare and economic regulations that benefit Native Americans, in that, no, not the Native Americans,
Nativist,
but
yeah.
people born here. And some of them are these heritage American people would say that it's people like me whose ancestors were here a while who should be preferred. No, it's not the fact that I have a right to be here has nothing to do with my ancestors or ancestry. That doesn't give me any kind of special claim to the land. The point is that it's individual. The only kind of rights, property rights, are individual rights. There are no collective rights. You can't say that about people who are born in America. You can't say that about any other ethnic group. The test of legitimacy for a government is not whether it respects some ethnic group or racial group or religious group, but whether they respect individual rights. There are only individual rights to property or anything else.
Yeah, I think one of my friends had a joke about this. I'm not sure where he heard it, about sort of the immigrants taking your job. You know, imagine the immigrant coming to McDonald's and like pulling it out and say, "You give me your job. Oh, and you will want more money for your job? No, no, no. I will work for less money and better." And it's like, okay, might as well leave. I mean, like, what
Well,
does it
that's
mean?
one of the worst arguments, for immigration restrictions. You have no special claim to that job over anyone else in the world, my friends.
Yeah, and again, my thing would be like, yeah, it's like telling the businessmen what they can or cannot do, but also to some extent to your self-esteem, right? If you, I cannot imagine this, like growing up in America, the greatest country of the world, and a random immigrant that came here a year ago is able to overpower you on the labor market. Somebody who grew up in like Venezuela, or somebody that grew up even in Mexico, right? Somebody that grew up like south of the border is able to come in and like take over your job. I mean, at some point you have to take responsibility. Like, this is not the immigration problem. This is, you
No.
need to get better education, or you need to
Yes.
actually take control over your life. Like, you grew up in the greatest country in the world, and somehow you're screwing up.
If you need to keep people out to protect your job, let me suggest it's your problem, not theirs. Yeah, really good point. As an employer, I have the right to employ the best employees, the best value employees, frankly. I don't have some obligation to my kin and country to
Yeah, because
prefer Americans.
here I would throw, like, we are not only asking the let's say the person who loses his job. We're not only asking him to suffer, or for him to like benefit if like immigration is stopped, but you are also asking every single American to have less access. Because what does it mean if you can have a job and you can get better person, or somebody who is willing to work for less, right? That's
Right.
money that will be being, that's productivity that is increased, and every single person will benefit, even the person losing his job, even the person who's getting replaced. I mean, how many companies have been founded by immigrants? How many, like, aren't like right now all like the Magnificent Seven, aren't all those currently led by immigrants? Maybe I'm wrong, but I would kind of put some money on it. Elon Musk is an immigrant, I know that, and I
Elon
think a
Musk.
bunch of
Andrew
or
Carnegie was an
descendants of
immigrant.
immigrants.
I could go down the list of great Americans who are probably in some ways better Americans. Ayn Rand comes to mind. The people who fled Nazi Germany or communist Russia who came to America, that so enriched America. And by the way, most of my ancestors were random immigrants to this country at one time. I mean, what are they, where are we drawing these lines? No, 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 no. There's only individual rights, ladies and gentlemen. And employers have a right to employ the best people they can find. And if that means cheaper goods, that means cheaper goods for all Americans. Rather than considering higher wages for this select protected group, what we should consider is the real impact, if we're just talking economics, the real impact on the economy as a whole. We are richer when businesses can be more efficient and can do their business the way they want to do it. No, this is madness, morally and economically.
Yeah, and well, we have one more clip, so let's take a look at that.
It's hypocritical. It's a betrayal. It's just downright wrong. This is not right. This is bullshit.
And who is Trump going at in the Congress? Rand Paul, Thomas Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, although she has now resigned. He went at all the people who were demanding the Epstein files to be released and who opposed our ceaseless foreign aid, our unconditional, immovable foreign aid, unshakable support for Israel. That's what. So the people who oppose Trump being Israel first and oppose the Epstein files not being released, that's who he's attacking. The Israel Firsters, Tom Cotton, Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, Randy Fine, all these never Trumpers, they're now claiming to be MAGA. They now purport to be MAGA, and Trump has embraced them.
James?
Well, Massey and Rand Paul come at it from what we could call a libertarian perspective. It's not Israel that's their focus. It's any foreign wars. It's any foreign aid that they are in principle opposed to. I bet they are would be irritated that these anti-Semitic cretins are using their names, because I see their position as being one of American, use the pejorative term, they're more isolationist in general when it comes to everybody, not just Israel. This guy wouldn't have that position. He'd say we can have allies, but it's not as though they're Israel first is what's motivating it. And then he cites a whole bunch of members of Congress on the Hill who were elected when everyone knew what their position was on foreign policy. And if Lindsey Graham and Tom Cotton think that America shouldn't be isolationist, they have a whole different philosophy about foreign policy. Like we should do something about Iran. Some of them say we should do something about Venezuela, and et cetera, et cetera. The point is that these are Christian senators elected by whole states, knowing what their foreign policy was. So if you want to change things, sir, then go try and win an election and convince the American people. It's not being foisted on the American people against their will. The American people elect pro-Israel congresspeople and senators precisely because they are pro-Israel. Let me suggest that if most of the Congress is pro-Israel, it's because the most American people are pro-Israel.
Yeah, and even the opposite, right? Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, and Rand Paul. All of them were also elected. Like, people want to those ideas represented as well. Now, yeah, I think the base of both Thomas Massey and Rand Paul does come from certain isolationist libertarianism, but I'm worried with both of them actually translating it into sort of like specifically focusing on Israel. Like I like Thomas Massey in some instances, but I just wouldn't trust him with anything, because I think it tries to even roll back a little bit of the power of Congress, like tries to actually stand up to Trump in those regards, which I have a great respect for, especially because nobody else is doing that. And I think fundamentally, I think that's why Trump is going after these three people, both the Epstein files, and I think the fact that they are trying to speak out against Trump. I think Trump demands loyalty, and this is not loyalty to Israel, it's loyalty to him. And he is simply more on the Israeli side right now, but if he was on the Palestinian side, then that's the kind of loyalty he would demand. So that's more of, Nick Fuentes, Groypers, and these kind of people who thought that Trump is actually some kind of idealist, some kind of person with principles, instead of a complete pragmatist.
Yeah. Trump says help is on the way to the poor, suffering people of Iran. He would hate that. And he would only look at it in terms of how it relates to the Israel question. But if you can tell me that Iran, a country that has killed, that screams death to America, has pursued getting a nuclear weapon, has killed Americans, whose allies have blocked international trade, it's all about Israel, Israel, Israel. No, then you're blind to what America first, if your term America first has any real meaning, America has a direct security interest in making sure that the Ayatollah's government is gone. For the safety of America, for the safety of the world. It is, and it's not even exclusively attached to Israel, although Israel is our best ally in the region, and they have been recently, repeatedly attacked by Iran. So, he's just a frothing at the mouth anti-Semite who looks at things that aren't even necessarily, I mean, think of it. If Trump had said, look, we're going to take out the government in Venezuela because Iran and Hezbollah is there, China is there, that's the kind of thing that would make sense to me. But if you're going to say you're going after him because Hezbollah and Iran is there, means that our foreign policy is completely controlled by Jews in Israel, then, dude, you have no sense of what American interests are worldwide. Unfortunately, that wasn't Trump's justification for taking out Maduro. It was the drug war and so forth and so on. But the point, though, is that American interests in against Iran are not exclusively tethered to Israel, although they are and properly connected in some ways. So, he just prefers these conservative, religious, theocratic regimes, just in terms of his values, than he prefers anything truly American. Otherwise, he would clearly see that Israel is actually the country in the area that has American values, American interests, or at least much more closely aligned to it than anything in that region.
Uh, Somebody says, why are they obsessed with the Epstein files? Anyway, I don't really get it. Well, I should say, if, for example, the President Trump was involved in something illegal or even something really bad, yeah, we should know about it and you should care. I don't think, I wouldn't want Trump to like lose because of the Epstein files, because I think there's something much more wrong philosophically. And I think like a scandal is like an easy way to go out, that easy way to get him out without actually challenging the things he stands by. The specific reason why Reuters are, I think, obsessed with Epstein files is I think they believe that Epstein was a Mossad agent and this was
Right.
like a Israeli operation.
Listen to that name, Epstein. Epstein, and he was friendly with Israelis, and their conspiracy theory at least says he was a Mossad agent and so forth and so on.
And yeah, and that he was like controlling American politics.
Epstein was controlling American policy. Yeah. No, and they're also flying out on conspiracy theories. Why doesn't everybody, again, how many times do I have to say this? Can everyone just take a deep breath and wait until actual evidence of wrongdoing in the Epstein case? You want me to give you my seat of the pants where I think the smell test isn't being met? Epstein was a creep who did awful things, but he associated with many of the world's most famous and wealthy people. Until we have evidence that, Bill Gates or Tom Hanks or Steven Spielberg. Now, Prince Andrew, there's evidence. Maybe there's evidence on Bill Clinton. But the point, though, is can we wait for there to be some evidence of actual wrongdoing before we say that anyone who is ever associated with Epstein, because he was a creep and a criminal and a pervert, because he was associated with as many rich, famous, powerful people as he could possibly associate with? That was part of his shtick. But to say that American foreign policy was being controlled by Epstein is absolutely crazy too.
We have a super chat from Robert. Thank you so much. He says, MAGA really is the missing link. The anti-conceptual, concrete-bound, perceptual level mentality. They claim to yearn for the 1950s, but the worldview would take us back to the dark ages.
Well, yeah, I mean, some of these new right people are explicit. Robert, the truth is some of these MAGA types or alt-right types are absolutely calling for a return to the Middle Ages. They would much prefer, the Catholic rule of, Christendom circa 1300 than they would prefer anything that has to do with the values of 1776. Now, on the other hand, I got to say, Fuentes is making himself irrelevant in criticizing Trump so overtly, and Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson. He is making himself irrelevant.
Not necessarily. Especially
well, like I say, I have mixed feelings about giving any more attention to this guy because he is actually alienating himself even from Trump. So,
but here is the thing: if Trump is really on the way out, and which we still have a bet on, and JD Vance is the upcoming nominee and potentially president, I think like attacking Trump now already laying the groundworks for the JD Vance. Like JD Vance could do the sort of Trump couldn't give you what he wanted to. He could still preserve like Trump was great and all, but he didn't deliver on what he wanted to give you, especially if he's dead and he cannot defend himself. I mean, Trump is old. So I think I think Nick Fuentes likes, Nick Fuentes is like also a bit weird on JD Vance, but I think if the Republicans are really going even in the more crazy direction, I think that's what you want to do. Like you always attack the moderates, and it's gonna be crazy if Trump is the moderate one, but in many ways he kind of is, especially if you look at a lot of his administration.
If a President Vance were to prefer Fuentes over, I mean, that would be a horrific step in the wrong direction. I think that Vance is scarier than Trump in some ways because he's more ideological about his nativism. Trump is more of a pragmatist. He puts his finger he wets his finger, puts it in the wind, much more than Vance would. I think Vance is actually a little more ideologically committed to this alt-right
And consistent.
and consistent with it. I mean, all you have to do is go listen to his acceptance speech at the Republican National Convention. It sent a chill up my spine. So that is a danger. I concede right there. But I even suspect that Vance would see that Fuentes is a nut job. I'm hoping, at least, and until I get evidence to the contrary. Didn't he say some awful things about Vance's wife?
Yeah, he called her, Nick Fuentes called Vance's wife a cheat, which is a slur for.
He's a racist. He is just a downright bigot. And that should be the kiss of death in American politics. I mean, since our Civil War and the 14th Amendment, since our civil rights movement, right? And I thought that we'd fought these battles over the last 150 years and that the racists had lost. But when you hear the alt-right these days, you have to wonder.
Yeah, but I think even with racism, it is being sort of more and more accepted on the right, especially with the. I mean, when you have this amount of viewing of immigrants, of targeting. I mean, like the Trump eating the dogs. What was the Puerto Ricans
he
or
said
the
in
Haiti
that
community?
immigrant community they were eating their pets, right? And
Yeah, I don't know if it.
that.
I don't know if it was I think it was Haitians, like a Haitian
Haitians, that was
community.
it. It was Haitians eating their pets in this town in Ohio, right, or something. Yeah.
Or even I mean the Somali community right now, the sort of the weird targeting, which again you might have a problem with specific people, or even specific community might have more of this kind of thing. But when it comes to the rhetoric, I think that is becoming increasingly more.
We need to be very careful, even if it is a specific ethnic group in a specific area that is mostly doing something. That is not a justification for racism. Individuals are not statistics. You have to judge individuals as individuals. And I don't care. You can cite your statistics at me all day long, and I will be totally unimpressed when it comes to your bigotry or racism or various forms of tribalist collectivism. Individuals alone are moral agents. Individuals alone can be judged. And to judge people with this sweeping broad brush. Now, there are cases, of course, when certain groups, I mean, I would not trust the Muslim communities in Michigan. That is where, for example, there's a lot of concentration. I disagree with them, but that wouldn't make me judge all Muslims in America with the same broad brush. That would be bigotry. We judge individuals, my friends, and anything else is tribalist collectivism.
Yeah, I would only say on that because I think people might be wondering, well, why is this one specific community so much more prevalent in this one? And I think this comes from just that if there is an immigrant community that is recent, they probably might be a bunch of families or people who know each other or congregate around each other, and if they find out something specific they want to focus on, they go into that. That's why you have Italian mafia, right? You have
that was exactly the example I was going to use. When the movie The Godfather came out more than 50 years ago, Italian Americans protested, saying that we don't all support the mafia, and that's unfair to us. But was there a relationship between, in fact, was there a real connection between the Sicilian and Southern Italy Black Hand migrating here? When ethnic groups come to America, they normally do hang together before they acculturate, especially in the first generations, and they bring their traditions with them. And sometimes those traditions can be criminal, as in the case of the Italian mob. But I'm not going to judge all Italians based on what certain Italian immigrants do. That is unfair as well. That's why I keep coming back to it. I don't care if there was an Italian mob that you could identify as the Italian mob in America. That is no way to judge Italian Americans, the vast majority of whom acculturated, became Americans, and were not involved in organized crime.
Yeah, and I think that's why. And yeah, so more than anything, even the sort of coverage is crazy. Yeah, I mean, even in specifically with the Somali, the way I see people, like we like when there is a fraud, we have process for it, right? To like deal with that. But there seems to be this like this weird thing of like something bad happens once, and now we need to get rid of this whole thing, and there is no punishment that's too little, right? Like with what was his name? I had it Jonathan Pollard, right? Like he served his sentence, he like got punished, he maybe have gotten punished even more than your average agent, and somehow that is still not enough. So
And
that
it's the fault of all Jews.
yeah.
That is the point I'm making. You can cite a Jonathan Pollard. Does that mean that Jews control America? Jews are all to be suspected? Do we have a Jewish conspiracy? Blame the Jews. Okay, no, 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 no. You can't do that. A Pollard does not allow, Vito Corleone, the fictional character, his factual equivalent, does not give you grounds to say Italian Americans are the problem. Pollard does not give you the grounds to say all Jewish people in government are to be put, under the light of suspicion. Say it again, judgment can only be done on an individual basis, and anyone who backs up and puts it into an ethnic or religious or racial group is wrong. American nativism has had paranoia when the huge Irish immigration happened, and then a large Italian immigration happened, large Chinese immigration happened, large Jewish immigration happened. All of these groups, by the way, enriched America profoundly. But there was this nativist reaction by the people already here. Oh no, those drunken Irish Catholics are going to ruin America. Oh, those Jewish Eastern European Jewish immigrants are going to ruin America. Oh, those Italians are bringing organized crime. Can we stop it? Can we stop it?
Yeah, and I would only finish with, if you believe in America, I suppose you believe in American Constitution and law and order. If somebody goes into prison, serves his sentence, maybe even gets out on good behavior, and you still decide to judge him afterwards, I mean, at some point you have to ask yourself a question like this person has paid his,
Dues.
according to law, has paid his dues, and you continue to judge him based on that. I mean, do people
Well, I mean,
deserve?
it is part of my overall judgment of him. Has he, reformed and changed? If it was a real moral issue, has he reformed and changed? But on the other hand, you're right. He served his sentence. It wasn't a life sentence, and that's what you're treating it as. In being convicted of a felony, he lost certain rights to possess guns, to vote, and all sorts of things. You don't want to get convicted of a felony in this country. In many places, you do lose a variety of rights that other citizens have. But he's served his sentence, as you say. But to blame Jews in general, Zionists in general, for what Pollard did is wrong. It's
Yeah,
bigotry.
and I don't even mean like with Pollard specifically, but any American or any immigrant that
Right,
goes to prison and serves their sentence and gets out.
right. That's got it. Absolutely correct, Daniel.
Well, with that, James, any last thoughts from you? And where can people find you?
Well, hopefully you'll find me here more. I want to apologize for my absence lately. I've gone through a bunch of health issues, me and my family in general. But I can be found at Facebook, James Stevens Valiant, where I answer questions almost every day. Hit me up there. And you can find me here. If you're a paid subscriber to the Ayn Rand Center UK, you can participate on Sundays. We're having a seminar where we discuss objectivism, the philosophy of Ayn Rand. It really is a great seminar. Again, I'm sorry that I skipped out the last time on because for health reasons. But when I'm healthy, it's a really high level discussion, but it's only available to paid members. So do please consider becoming a paid member of Ayn Rand Center UK. It's here where you'll find me doing my best work on the internet.
And you can find me on my YouTube channel, Damned Dan. We will be back tomorrow with episode of the Daily Objective and the reality show as well. So make sure to join us then. Thank you, Jen, for joining me today. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and bye-bye.
Be safe.